Dozens of workers at Boeing here in Huntsville are getting laid off. According to the Made in Alabama warn list, 71 employees will be laid off starting April 18th. Boeing says that most employees notified of the layoff will exit the company in 2 months, and eligible employees will receive benefits for another 3 months.
December 2025. While Boeing slashes over 5,000 American jobs across 11 states, the company just secured a massive $345 million deal in Canada. While U.S. factories in Alabama, South Carolina, and Washington face their third round of layoffs, Boeing's Winnipeg composite plant employs 1,500 workers producing 787 Dreamliner components. While American aerospace workers file for unemployment, Canada just announced Boeing will invest $110 million in Quebec's Aerospace Innovation Zone. This is the aerospace job shift nobody in Washington wants to talk about. December 2025. August 2025. Boeing announced $345 million Canadian dollars in industrial and technological benefits investments across Canada. $61 million Canadian dollars in British Columbia Aerospace Enterprises. October 2025. Boeing committed $110 million Canadian dollars to Quebec's eSpace Aero Innovation Zone. The same month, Boeing was issuing warn notices to thousands of American workers. February 2025. Boeing laid off 71 employees in Huntsville, Alabama, the third round of cuts there. South Carolina, 69 job cuts in North Charleston, also the third round. Total layoffs announced. Over 5,080 positions eliminated since December 2024. I'm going to break down exactly what's happening. Boeing's U.S. production crisis. The FAA production cap strangling American factories. Canada's strategic aerospace advantage Boeing can't ignore. The $2 billion in P. 8 contracts flowing to Canadian suppliers. Why 500 Boeing suppliers span every Canadian province while U.S. plants close. The investment gap stunning American aerospace workers. Because while Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg cuts 10% of the global workforce, he's expanding in Canada. But first, if you want to understand how Canada is winning the aerospace jobs America is losing, subscribe to this channel. Hit that subscribe button. Your subscription helps expose the economic shifts mainstream media won't cover. Alright, let's start with Boeing's US collapse. October 2024, Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg announced plans to reduce total labor force by 10%, roughly 17,000 employees across locations worldwide. 17,000 jobs gone. Washington State, 2,595 layoffs. Missouri, 692 layoffs. Oregon, 50 layoffs. South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Arizona, layoffs across 11 states. But here's what makes this devastating. The Society of Professional Engineering Employees in Aerospace says 660 of its members were laid off. Engineers, highly skilled professionals. Some employees had to leave their jobs immediately with no time to finish projects. That's the first time we've experienced that employees are coming to us to help them get the work done because they're being shoved out the airlock, so to speak, rather quickly, said Rich Plunkett, SBA Director of Strategic Development. Shoved out the airlock. That's how Boeing treats American aerospace workers in 2025. Now let's talk about why Boeing is slashing US jobs. January 2024. A door plug panel blew off a new Alaska Airlines 737 MAX 9 mid-flight. Investigation found key bolts meant to secure the panel had been missing. Boeing sent a plane into the sky without bolts holding critical components. The FAA immediately capped Boeing's 737 MAX production at 38 aircraft per month. 38 planes. Boeing's target? 52 per month. The cap devastated production capacity. FAA Administrator Brian Bedford said Boeing hasn't even formally asked to lift the production cap. We're a long ways away from saying we can let our guard down, Bedford cautioned. The FAA doesn't trust Boeing, and American workers pay the price. November 2025, Boeing produced only 32 aircraft, below the target of 42 per month, and even below the FAA's stabilized level of 38. Production falling, not rising, falling. Boeing's troubled 737 MAX program is centered at Renton, Washington, but has been operating below full capability due to ongoing efforts to stabilize safety and quality control standards. can't produce at capacity, can't meet FAA standards, can't keep American workers employed. But Boeing can invest in Canada. Boeing's extensive network of approximately 500 suppliers across Canada spans every province. This network underscores the importance of Canadian companies to Boeing's global operations. 500 suppliers, every province. That's Boeing's Canadian foundation. Boeing Winnipeg employs around 1,500 people and is the largest aerospace composite manufacturer in Canada. The facility produces over 500 composite parts for Boeing commercial airplanes, including components for the 787 Dreamliner. 1,500 Canadian jobs, producing 500-plus parts. For Boeing's flagship Dreamliner, compare that to U.S. facilities. Huntsville, Alabama, 71 layoffs in April 2025, following 158 layoffs in January and 128 earlier, 3 rounds of cuts in 1 year. North Charleston, South Carolina, 69 layoffs in April, adding to 287 job cuts in January and February, 3rd round there too. U.S. facilities shrinking, Canadian facilities expanding. Now here's the massive deal that just happened. Boeing has successfully completed on or ahead of schedule more than $15.5 billion CAD in ITB programs over the last 40 years. $15.5 billion. Over 40 years. Boeing's been building Canada's aerospace sector for decades. August 2025, Boeing announced 345 million Canadian dollars in ITB investments as a result of Canada's selection of the P-8A Poseidon aircraft. $345 million for one aircraft selection. Currently, 81 Boeing suppliers across Canada support P-8A production. Each of the 170-plus P-8A aircraft in operation globally contains over 11 million Canadian dollars worth of Canadian content. $11 million PR aircraft in Canadian components. That's why Boeing invests in Canada, because Canadian suppliers are essential to production. To date, Boeing has awarded over 2 billion Canadian dollars in P-8 contracts to Canadian companies. $2 billion. While U.S. workers lose jobs, Canadian aerospace workers secure billions in contracts. Now let's talk Quebec, because that's where Boeing's really expanding. October 2025, Boeing committed 110 million Canadian dollars to Quebec's eSpace Aero Innovation Zone. This is part of a larger $240 million pledge first disclosed in May 2024. $240 million total. For Quebec aerospace innovation, R&D, eVTOL development, supplier advancement. The money is split across an R&D center, WISC eVTOL staffing and supplier R&D, and sustainable aviation fuel projects. Boeing's building future aerospace technology in Quebec, while cutting today's jobs in Alabama and South Carolina. Boeing's ITB investments in Canada reflect our commitment to fostering innovation and supporting local communities, said Al Meinzinger, president of Boeing Canada. With 106 years of history in Canada and 500 suppliers spanning every province, we are proud to partner with Canadian organizations. 106 years in Canada, 500 suppliers, billions in contracts, hundreds of millions in new investments. U.S. workers? Layoff notices. Here's what makes Canada irresistible to Boeing. Quebec is already a global aerospace hub that hosts Airbus, Bombardier, and major suppliers. Governments and industry frame Boeing's commitments as deepening local supply chains and cutting costs through proximity to composites, automation, and Tier 1 and 2 suppliers. Supply chain proximity, cost efficiency, established aerospace ecosystem. That's Canada's advantage. Canadian Minister of Industry Melanie Joly said, Boeing's ITB investments are advancing Canada's position as a hub for cutting-edge innovation and a leader in the global aerospace sector. These strategic investments will drive industry growth while contributing to economic development and creating high-paying jobs in communities across the country. High-paying jobs, economic development, innovation leadership. Canada gets it all. Meanwhile, in the U.S., Boeing announced it would further delay the rollout of the 777X to 2026 instead of 2025. It will also stop building the cargo version of its 767 jet in 2027 after finishing current orders. Delays, cancellations. Job losses. Boeing has lost more than $25 billion since the start of 2019. $25 billion in losses. American workers absorb the pain. Boeing burned through $1.3 billion in cash during Q3 2024 and lost $9.97 per share. $2.6 billion charge related to 777X delays. $400 million for the 767. $2 billion for defense and space programs, including new Air Force One jets. Losses everywhere. But Boeing still invests $345 million in Canada. Let that sink in. Now here's what Canadian aerospace suppliers are saying. Boeing's $13 million Canadian investment under the P-8 ITB program has been transformative for Coda Aviation, said Kyle Kusnierek, CEO of BC-based Coda Aviation. Transformative. Canadian companies growing because of Boeing investment. Boeing Ottawa hosts Boeing Defense, Space and Security, and Boeing Global Services. The office leads program execution for the Royal Canadian Air Force's CH-147F Chinook fleet. Boeing manages Canadian military contracts from Ottawa, not from Pentagon facilities. Ottawa. Boeing Vancouver specializes in innovative IT solutions that enhance operations management for the aviation industry. The company has built a strong reputation as a leading provider of maintenance scheduling and planning software. Canadian Boeing operations developing aviation software. High-tech, high-value work. Compare that to U.S. facilities losing hundreds of workers assembling planes under FAA restrictions. Here's the bottom line for December 2025. Boeing laid off over 5,080 U.S. workers since December 2024. Washington State alone, 2,595 layoffs. Huntsville, South Carolina, third rounds of cuts. FAA production cap at 38 aircraft per month, strangling U.S. manufacturing. November 2025, Boeing produced only 32 aircraft, below even the cap. Meanwhile, Boeing announced $345 million Canadian investment in Canada, August 2025. $110 million Canadian to Quebec Aerospace Innovation, October 2025. $2 billion in P-8 contracts to Canadian companies. 500 suppliers across every Canadian province. 1,500 workers at Winnipeg Composite Plant producing 787 Dreamliner parts. Over $15.5 billion CAD in Canadian aerospace investment over 40 years. This is the aerospace shift Washington doesn't want you to see. Boeing isn't fleeing to Canada overnight, but Boeing is expanding Canadian operations while slashing U.S. jobs. Boeing IS investing hundreds of millions in Canadian innovation while delaying U.S. programs. Boeing IS relying on 500 Canadian suppliers while American factories operate below capacity. Make sure you're subscribed because this aerospace job migration will accelerate in 2026. The FAA won't lift production caps until Boeing fixes quality problems. That could take years. Meanwhile, Boeing needs to produce aircraft. Boeing needs suppliers it can trust. Boeing needs aerospace ecosystems that work. Canada offers that. Established supply chains, quality manufacturing, government support, aerospace innovation hubs in Quebec, British Columbia, Manitoba, Ontario. American workers offer experience, skill, and loyalty, but they can't overcome FAA restrictions. They can't fix Boeing's management failures. They can't compete with Canada's strategic advantages. So Boeing cuts 17,000 jobs globally, most in the US, while investing $345 million in Canada. That's the brutal math of 2025 aerospace economics. US military leaders aren't stunned by this. They know it's happening. But admitting Boeing is expanding in Canada while cutting American jobs, that's politically toxic. So they stay silent while aerospace workers in Alabama, Washington, South Carolina lose jobs. And Canada wins. Again, this story is far from over. Stay tuned.